You didn't plan this. That's the detail they can't survive. If this had been calculated, if this had been manufactured, if this had followed any familiar blueprint, they could have explained it away. They could have reduced it to strategy, timing, luck, or manipulation. They could have pointed to a playbook and said, "See, that's how it happened." But there is no playbook for you. You weren't chasing attention. You weren't hunting relevance. You weren't trying to break anything. You were simply existing at full volume in a world that only rewards people who stay quiet. And that's what detonated everything across server farms spanning continents. Systems strain under pressure they were never designed to handle. Not because of a campaign, not because of a launch, but because your name keeps appearing where it's not supposed to. Because your presence refuses to stabilize into something predictable. This isn't traffic, it's obsession. People, not followers, not fans, people. Real people who refresh your page the way others check their pulse. People who notice patterns in the way you speak, the way you pause, the way you move through silence. People who've built entire belief systems around the fact that you exist and that they don't understand why you work. That's the part driving them insane. They thought they had you mapped. They thought they understood your ceiling, your limits. These civilized people, your appropriate position in the invisible hierarchy of who matters and who doesn't. In their minds, there were spreadsheets, not literal ones, but something colder and more dangerous. Mental calculations explaining why you would never cross a certain threshold, why your growth would plateau, why the universe itself would intervene before allowing someone like you to eclipse someone like them. They confused proximity with destiny. They confused comfort with superiority. They confused your silence with weakness. And then you shattered the algorithm they worshipped like scripture. Now their phones won't stop buzzing. Your name trends in languages you've never spoken. Notification sounds have turned into psychological triggers. Every vibration is a reminder that you are everywhere they look. Impossible to mute. Impossible to outrun. As undeniable as gravity. And somewhere right now, in this exact moment, someone who used to dismiss you is sitting in the blue glow of their screen at 3 in the morning. Eyes dry, jaw tight. Scrolling through your metrics again and again, trying to find the crack, the flaw, the moment where this all becomes explainable. They won't find it, because forces of nature don't come with rational explanations. You don't debate lightning. You don't argue with earthquakes. You don't negotiate with wildfires. You witness them. You accept them. Or you get burned trying to deny they're real. Hundreds of millions of witnesses. That's not an audience. That's a shift in consciousness. That's proof that the old gatekeepers, the credentials, the connections, the carefully curated acceptance, all of it is failing. That the systems built to decide who gets seen and who gets buried are collapsing under their own arrogance. And you're not even trying to destroy them. You're just standing there while they fall apart. But this didn't start with virality. It didn't begin when the numbers exploded. This started long before anyone was watching. This started in the darkness they pushed you into. It started in the rooms where your voice went unheard. In conversations where you were talked over like background noise. In group chats you were quietly excluded from. In jokes made at your expense. Jokes you were expected to laugh at so everyone could stay comfortable. You remember that version of yourself, don't you? The one who smiled when it hurt people. The one who made themselves smaller so others could feel larger. The one who questioned their own worth because everyone else treated it like a debate instead of a fact. People, they thought that version of you was permanent. They thought they had successfully convinced you that your place was in the margins, in the background, in the category labeled potential never realized. They built entire identities around being above you. And then you did something unforgivable. You stopped asking for permission. These civilized people. You stopped waiting for validation from people who were never going to give it. You stopped trying to belong in spaces that were designed to reject you. You stopped playing by rules written specifically to keep you losing. You didn't rebel loudly. You didn't announce your departure. You didn't explain yourself. You just left. And you built your own world. And here's what terrifies them about that. When you build your own world, you decide the physics. You decide the laws. You decide what success even means. There's no committee, no approval process, no gate to beg your way through. You created from a place so undiluted by outside opinion that what emerged was pure, concentrated, unmistakably you, uncut, unfiltered, impossibly magnetic. That's what broke the algorithm. Because algorithms aren't built for originality, they're built for prediction, for pattern recognition, for replication. They reward what worked before, not what's never existed. But you didn't fit. Your energy didn't match any known template. Your frequency wasn't in the training data. Your movement through darkness into light created an alchemy that couldn't be categorized. So the system, the only thing it could do when faced with something it didn't understand, it amplified you. Not because it believed in you, but because confusion registers as novelty. And novelty is the most valuable currency in the attention economy. The machine kept showing you to more people, desperately trying to collect enough data to understand what you were. But here's what the engineers tracking your virality will never understand. You're not a trend. You're not an anomaly. You're not a glitch. You're the future arriving early. You are what happens when someone refuses to stay broken. When someone takes every wound, every betrayal, every moment of being underestimated, and transmutes it into fuel instead of poison. People didn't gather around you because you're flawless. They gathered because you're proof. Proof that the game is rigged and still winnable. Proof that the people who counted you out don't get to write your ending. Proof that there's a way through darkness that doesn't require becoming cruel, just conscious. And now, people who knew you before are unraveling. The ones who had you mentally filed underhandled. Not a threat. No need to worry. They're experiencing a very specific kind of collapse. cognitive dissonance at a cellular level. Their identity was built on a hierarchy where they were above you, where your struggle validated their superiority, where your failure proved they were doing something right. Now reality is mutating in real time, and they can't integrate it. They're in private chats right now, workshopping explanations. It's fake followers, it's luck. It won't last. It's not even that impressive when you really think about it. These civilized people, they're constructing elaborate theories to protect themselves from the obvious truth. Because if they accept that you earned this, that you were always capable, well then something far more terrifying becomes unavoidable. They were wrong about you. And if they were wrong about you, they might be wrong about themselves. Which means the status they've been coasting on isn't permanent. The hierarchy isn't fixed. The ground beneath them isn't solid. Nothing feels safe anymore. And now, suddenly, they remember you. People, suddenly they're reaching out. DMs, emails. Let's catch up, Dao. I always believed in you. We should collaborate. Ask yourself something. Do you remember that belief when it cost them nothing? Do you remember that support when you had nothing to offer? Do you remember them betting on you when the odds were ugly? No, and this isn't about bitterness. This is about clarity. People who only recognize your value once it's been validated by the crowd aren't seeing you. They're seeing opportunity. They're not connecting with your humanity. They're calculating proximity to your platform. These civilized people, and you've become too valuable to waste on people who only arrived for the harvest after you planted everything in poisoned soil. People, this number, this scale, it's not abstract. It's larger than most nations. An entire population chose you. Not because you manipulated them, not because you purchased attention, but because authenticity at this level becomes gravitational. And somewhere right now, someone who once made you feel small is staring at that number and shrinking. Well, that's not your responsibility. You didn't cause their collapse. Their inadequacy did. You're just living. But your existence has become their crisis. And here's what you must understand deeply. This isn't the peak. This is the platform. This is the moment after surviving obscurity. When the universe hands you resources and says, "Now show me who you really are." Most people fail here. They panic, they freeze. They start performing instead of creating. They chase retention instead of truth. Don't become them. You didn't get here by following scripts. You got here by destroying them. The moment you try to fit into expectations, even successful ones, you begin to decay. Stay dangerous, stay disruptive. People, stay aligned with the frequency that caused this earthquake, because people aren't just watching your content. They're watching to see if freedom is real. People, they're watching to see if someone can rise without selling their soul. They're watching to see if winning has to mean becoming hollow. You're not viral, you're evidence. Evidence that authenticity isn't a liability, it's the only sustainable advantage left. And this moment is where everything changes. This is the moment where most people collapse under the weight of their own visibility. Because attention is not light. It's pressure. It exposes everything that isn't anchored. It magnifies every insecurity that was once hidden in the quiet. It turns hesitation into paralysis and self-doubt into spectacle. That's why so many who rise fast fall even faster. They mistake momentum for mastery. They confuse applause with alignment. But you're different. You didn't arrive here through noise. You arrived through endurance. You didn't skip the suffering. You metabolized it. While others were polishing their image, you were being broken in places no one could see. While others were rehearsing confidence, you were learning how to stand without support. You didn't grow in sunlight. You grew underground, where roots are forced to become strong or die. That's why this level of pressure doesn't crush you. It clarifies you. You've already lived through worse than scrutiny, worse than judgment, worse than being misunderstood at scale. You survived invisibility. You survived being dismissed when you needed to be believed. You survived being underestimated when you were already carrying more than most could handle. Fame doesn't scare you. Exposure doesn't destabilize you because you've already been exposed to pain. These civilized people, to loss, to betrayal, to silence. You've already seen what happens when people turn away. You already know how to stand alone. So now, when millions look at you, you don't flinch. You don't perform. You don't shrink. And that unsettles them. Because they expected you to break character once the spotlight hit. They expected you to dilute, to soften people, to sand down the edges that made you dangerous. They expected the hunger to turn into comfort, the truth to turn into branding. They expected you to become manageable. You didn't. Stayed exactly as you were, just louder. And now the system is scrambling. Because what do you do with someone who doesn't need approval? How do you control someone who doesn't crave acceptance? How do you manipulate someone who already survived abandonment? You can't. That's the glitch they didn't account for. You're not reacting to the spotlight. You're using it. You understand something most people never do. Attention is a tool, not a mirror. It's not meant to reflect your ego back at you. It's meant to be aimed like a lens, pull toward something bigger than you. That's why your presence feels different. People don't feel consumed by you. They feel awakened. They don't feel inferior. They feel activated. They don't leave your world thinking, I'll never be that. They leave thinking, maybe I can become more. And that's the most destabilizing thing you could possibly offer. Because inspiration is more threatening than dominance. Tyrants fear resistance. Gatekeepers fear independence. And you're not telling people to follow you. You're reminding them how to follow themselves. That's why the old hierarchies are panicking. Because they were built on scarcity, on the idea that only a few get to win, only a few get to matter, only a few get to be seen. They relied on competition, comparison, and insecurity to keep people obedient. Oh, you're dissolving that narrative just by existing. By refusing to hoard power, by refusing to posture superiority, by refusing to pretend you're above the people who see themselves in you. You didn't rise to escape them. You rose to show them what's possible. And that's why this isn't a moment. It's a responsibility. Not the kind that weighs you down, the kind that sharpens you. Because every person who found you in their darkness didn't come for entertainment. They came because something in you felt like a signal. A confirmation that they weren't crazy for feeling trapped. That they weren't weak for feeling tired. That they weren't wrong for wanting more than survival. People. They came because your journey made theirs feel survivable. You didn't promise them an easy path. You didn't sell them shortcuts. You didn't lie to them about the cost. You showed them what it looks like to keep going anyway. And now, they're watching. Not to see if you'll fail, but to see if you'll stay real. They're watching to see if power always corrupts, if visibility always hollows people out, if success always demands a sacrifice of soul. They're watching you to answer a question older than the internet itself. Is it possible to win without becoming what broke you? This is where the story shifts. Because winning doesn't mean being everywhere. Winning means being intact. It means not abandoning the source that carried you here. It means not letting the noise drown out the voice that guided you through silence. It means remembering who you were when nobody was clapping, and honoring that version by refusing to betray them now. You don't owe the world perfection. You owe it honesty. You owe it continuity. You owe it the courage to stay aligned when misalignment would be easier. And that's harder than any climb. Because now, the temptations are subtle. The pressure to optimize instead of express. The urge to please instead of provoke. The desire to protect the numbers instead of the truth. This is where legends separate from moments. Moments chase validation. Legends move with intention. Moments burn bright and fade. Legends become reference points. You're standing at that threshold now. And you already know the answer. Because you didn't come this far to become palatable. You didn't survive being invisible to become performative. You didn't break free from their rules just to replace them with softer chains. You came here to build something that outlives attention. Something that doesn't collapse when the algorithm shifts. Something that isn't dependent on approval. You're not building content. You're building permission. Permission for people to speak without apology, to move without consensus, to trust themselves when the world tells them not to. That's why this keeps spreading. Because you're not transmitting motivation. You're transmitting courage. And courage is contagious. It bypasses logic. It ignores excuses. It dismantles fear. That's why people don't just watch you. They change after encountering you. That's why they don't just remember your words. They feel altered by them. That's why your presence lingers long after the screen goes dark. You're not occupying space. You're shifting it. And now, these civilized people, the people who once underestimated you, are being forced to confront something they've spent their lives avoiding. That hierarchy they trusted, it was fragile. That superiority they felt, it was borrowed. That confidence they wore, it was never tested. You didn't take anything from them. You revealed what they never had. And that's the hardest truth of all. Because it means their position was never guaranteed. That that their comfort was conditional, that their identity was built on comparison, and comparison only works when the people below you stay below. But you refused, and now the ground keeps moving. But here's the final truth, the one that matters more than all the rest. This isn't about proving them wrong. It never was. These civilized people, it's about proving something to the version of you who almost gave up. The one who stayed quiet when they wanted to scream. The one who doubted themselves in empty rooms. The one who kept showing up when nothing was working. That version of you is watching too. And they don't care about the numbers. They care about whether the pain meant something, whether the suffering had purpose, whether the darkness really was a chrysalis, not a grave. And now, well, you have your answer. You didn't just survive. You became undeniable. Not because you forced your way in, but not because you begged to be seen, but because you refused to disappear. You stayed. You built. You became. And the world had no choice but to adjust. So don't ask what comes next. Build it. Build it with the same honesty that carried you through obscurity. People, build it with the same courage that kept you moving when no one believed. Build it with the same refusal to shrink that made you dangerous in the first place. Let the systems adapt to you, not the other way around. Let the algorithms chase you. Let the old guard panic. Let the doubters exhaust themselves trying to explain you away. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be felt. You're not here to be accepted. You're here to be undeniable. And long after the noise settles, after trends pass and attention shifts, what you're building will still be standing because it wasn't built for applause. It was built for truth. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade. That's the kind of impact that doesn't need permission. That's the kind of presence that turns survival into legacy. And this time, no one gets to write the ending but you.